Do it. Hey everybody, I'm Amy with Birds and Bees and Kids, and I'm super excited to have you here with me and my friend Hunter, the Mindful Mama mentor, to help us learn how to calm the F down, I think in general. And then I was really excited to have her come talk with y'all because one of the times that I think everybody gets really anxious, amped up is when it comes to, of course, the sex talk. So I think we're going to have a good conversation. Hunter's been at this for a long time. I'm going to read her bio in just a minute. And for those of you who are just hopping on, go ahead and let us know how old your kids are and where you are in the world while we get this little party started. So I have to go read her bio so I get everything right. And Hunter, yay. Happy to have you here. Just want to say okay. Yay! All right, just a sec. All right, I'm going to read the bio so I get it all right. So Hunter Clarke-Fields is a mindful mama mentor. She's the creator of the Mindful Parenting course, host of the Mindful Mama podcast, and widely followed author of Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. She helps bring more calm and peace into their daily lives. Hunter has over 20 years experience in meditation practices and has taught mindfulness to thousands worldwide. She's the mother of 2 active daughters who challenge her every day to hone her craft. And you can learn more about Hunter at mindfulmamamentor.com. And when we're done, I will send the recording and the replay of this. So if you need to bail, which you know that happens, you'll get the replay you can watch whenever you want. So yay, Hunter, thanks for joining us. It was funny before we started recording, speaking of active kids, Hunter was saying that her daughter is doing some writing.
Thank you, Ella. Thank you.
Horsey riding. And I just thought, sounds active to me. And I got to mute everybody. If you're not muted, will you mute yourself? Thank you. Oh, Hunter, I just muted you. Okay, want to take it away?
All right, I'm here. Hi, everyone. Hello. I'm so excited to see where you are and where you're all from and all those things. So many age ranges. I think this is going to be really accessible for you, whatever age range your kids are, because I know that we get stressed when we think about having that sex talk with our kids, those multiple sex talks throughout the years. But once they realize what the heck we're talking about, it gets a little more uncomfortable. That's my own experience, at least, is that when they were little, it was very easy because they're all so curious and interested. And then afterwards, it got a little more uncomfortable. And our stress response, and particularly when we think about when we're at our worst with our kids, it's like, when we're stressed, when we're frustrated, when we're yelling, right? You need to get over here so I can talk to you about this. You can't be looking at the internet to learn about sex. Do not be doing it, right? And it can be hard to kind of get our kids' attention. So kind of in preparation for this, I looked a little bit at some of the yelling humor that we have on the internet. So I thought that could help us kind of break the ice. And there's this one meme that said, I love it when I find myself screaming, "Stop screaming," at my kids. That's how I teach them irony. Does anyone relate to that one? I've reached the point where in parenthood where I just yell nonsensical threats in an aggressive tone, like I know what I'm doing. That one was really quite silly. And then I thought, we're trying to get our kids' attention. We're trying to connect with them. We're trying to, have this relationship where we can talk about important things in a connected, positive way, where we can talk about bodies and all of these different things. And we're trying to get their attention, right? But a lot of times when we're trying to get their attention and they don't want to really listen, we end up kind of in that kind of aggressive place where we're not very calm and we're yelling, right? So I thought this meme was pretty funny. And you have to give me a 1 in the chat if you've noticed this to be true in your life. Okay. Tired of yelling to get your kids' attention? Try these. Use the bathroom. make a phone call, relax on the couch, open a chocolate bar. So I don't know about you, but I'm like, I would put a 1 in the chat for all of those because I have found myself using the bathroom, making a phone call. All of those things tend to get my kids' attention. So put a 1 in the chat if any of you've had any of those. And please do, because I need your interaction during this whole thing. This is a two-way street, my friend. So get me, you got to hit me up there. Okay. But seriously, it's possible for us to calm the F down. It's possible for us to get agitated, get frustrated, to yell less. And it takes practice, and it takes a willingness to be able to be uncomfortable, right? To be, and what I mean by uncomfortable is, I mean, be brave, right? Be brave / uncomfortable. It's kind of basically the same thing in some ways. So, and what I want you to take from this in general is that I want you to know that you can reduce your stress response, your yelling, and you can do it even if you come from a family of yellers, even if it's so instantaneous for you. It just, what you practice grows stronger. So you can do it. And the benefit that you will get from this is that when you know this, you can let yourself be imperfect and practice and begin anew each time, right? So we're not aiming to get you to the like this exalted parenting place where you are in this perfect place. We're getting you to be, we want you to be perfectly real, perfectly imperfect. You don't have to do it all perfectly. It's just about beginning anew each time and starting again.
I have a question. I'm sorry. I just have a quick question. I'm probably going to interrupt you. Well,
okay, that's great.
I'm just like innately curious. I know, I'm like, you teach, I'm not interviewing. So this is what I'm thinking. Like, you're talking about this like upper level, like yelling and trying to get their attention. And what I'm curious about is like is your thought process that when you can handle those big emotions, do you think, I'm just curious about, is it easier to learn how to handle the little moments? I don't know, you're probably going to get there, but I'm just curious. It just occurred to me, because hopefully you're not yelling at your kids with the sex talk, right?
No, we're not yelling at our kids with the sex talk, but yeah, no, that is the idea, right? Is that the yelling is a symptom, is kind of like the penultimate symptom of our, like, us and our stress response, and the impairments that it has in our brain, which I'm going to get to. And so we're going to start to help ourselves calm the F down a little bit earlier, even if we're getting to that less explosive kind of stress response. Yes, good question. So one of the problems with, some of the problems with, you know, this, with our like reactive nature, right? Like, so we have this biological nature where we have, what's going on is that the nature of our body is that our stress response leads to basically impaired parenting, whether it's all the way to the yelling or it's just to the like freeze part, right? We've got that fight, flight, or freeze part, and we get that, you know, the whole reaction. And I want to just go a little deeper into what happens in the brain with that, and how this stress response impairs our parenting, whether we are trying to get our 4-year-old out the door, or whether we're trying to talk to our 14-year-old about internet sex issues. If whatever we're trying to do, when we have that stress response happening inside our bodies, it impairs our parenting. And this is why. So in your brain, this is my handy dandy little brain chart. Is that reverse? No. Okay. So this stress response that we feel when we're stressed, that tightening of the chest, the muscles, the shoulders getting tight, all of those things what's happening is there's the amygdala in the base of our brain, which is kind of like right in the brainstem. And that's kind of the seat of that stress response. And what's happening in that moment is it's causing you to be, because we are wired for survival, we evolved to survive. It's just talking to our kids about an uncomfortable subject. It feels threatening to our survival. So the survival part of our body is saying, oh crap, here's a threat. We have to take care of it. And so what it does, it actually cuts off access to your prefrontal cortex. So your prefrontal cortex is kind of the area behind your forehead, your upper brain. This is the area of your higher order thinking, your problem solving ability, your empathy, your verbal ability, all of these things that you want to be able to use to be able to calmly talk to your kids about sexuality and sex issues. So that prefrontal cortex, the problem with our stress response is that what's happening is it's literally bypassing it. It's literally cutting off access, because this part of the brain takes a long time. We don't want to stop and think about, of course, like we should just save our kids from like the street running in the street, right? We just have to act. And so it doesn't want that thought process to go through the prefrontal cortex. So what's happening with that is that the stress response is basically equivalent to impaired parenting. But it's not your fault. It's something that is part of our evolutionary biology, that we have this stress response. It's just what's part of every single one of us are wired to have anxiety, to feel threatened, and to have the muscles tighten, to have the breath shorten. All of those things. It's just part of our wiring that we have those things, and it's not your fault. But it does impair our parenting. So there are tools we can use to take care of it. We just have to kind of acknowledge that, right? So we're going to talk about how to calm overall anxiety and stress response and reactivity, like kind of overall in your lives. And then we're going to talk about it in the moment. And if you guys have questions, just put them in the chat. But so first let's think about like how to calm that overall anxiety. One of the best ways to reduce your anxiety, your yelling, your reactivity is to reduce the overall stress level in your life. I know this is asking a lot for a lot of us, but I want to impart to you that this is important, right? So this means like sleep, exercise, friends and family. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting some exercise? Are you seeing friends and family? What is the overall stress level in your lives? And sometimes we can be so focused on our work, or sometimes so focused on our kids, and we are taught by our culture to kind of put ourselves last, right? We have this legacy of like the mommy martyr culture, and even with dads, it's like this idea that we're only as good as how we serve others, right? And I want to share the idea with you that that's not only not true, that's actually a really harmful idea, because if you don't take care of yourself and you get your overall stress levels get out of control, then you're going to be crap at giving that sex talk to your kid, or having any talk with your kid. You're going to not be able to handle it when they have big upset feelings. You're not going to be able to handle, like, have any kind of difficulty and resistance, challenging issues. So your self-care, and I'm not talking like you're mani-pedi, like I'm talking about you taking reading a novel once in a while. It's not only not selfish, it's actually your responsibility. So it's not selfish, it's actually your responsibility. And I'm wondering if you know, does that feel like sometimes like people have some reaction to me saying that, like, and I'm wondering, you know, I'd love to see, like, put a 2 in the chat if something comes up for you around that. Are you feeling some kind of like, but wait a second, Hunter, I don't know about that. You know, I'd love to know. So calming that overall stress response, we want to reduce our overall stress, but also the other thing I like to talk about, and when we think about calming the whole overall reactivity and overall anxiety, is mindfulness meditation. And this is what I'm really passionate about, because it is research proven to change the brain and change reactivity. Like, it's pretty amazing. So there's Johns Hopkins did a meta study of like 47 different studies that showed that mindfulness meditation reduces anxiety, reduces depression. It increases feelings of well-being. It gives you better sleep, better health outcomes if you're in the hospital. There are so many things it does for you. And what's pretty amazing are, remember we talked about this? So my mindfulness meditation, like an 8-week practice of it, they've done MRI scans of the brain of people who do that. And the amygdala, which is the seat of the stress response in that brain, it actually shrinks the gray matter of that amygdala, making it less dense. And it actually shrinks the connectivity of that with the rest of the brain. So it actually makes it less strong. It shrinks that physically. And it actually makes more thick the gray matter in the prefrontal cortex. So not only are you seeing these like behavior outcomes, reduced stress outcomes, reduced anxiety outcomes, reduced depression outcomes, but you're actually seeing like physical evidence in the brain, which is so cool.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
Sorry, I told you I was going to interrupt. I just have a quick question. Just looking at when you were talking about, so somebody said I needed to hear that it's not selfish to do self-care. And I mean, I love hearing that. I mean, I said we can't hear that enough. And I know you're going to talk a little bit more about the mindfulness practice, but I'm really interested in the brain piece. And do they know what is happening that's making that chill out? And every time I hear anyone you talk about this, I just think teenagers. Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is modeling, right? Like modeling, taking care of yourself. So anyway, I just love a little more info about like, do you know what's happening? Like, and it's shrinking, and what's your sense of why that's happening? I'm just, having a scientific question.
Those are good questions. And I'm glad you're interrupting, because I think it's much more fun to talk to somebody than to just talk.
And we can just talk. I was having a day and a life.
Well, they don't know really why that's happening. So they can't really say definitively why that's happening. But what they do know about the brain, which is really interesting, is that literally what you practice grows stronger. So sometimes people say, so for instance, like what I think is happening, I'll give you my personal, completely, just from your practicing, right? As you practice, you're sitting still, generally. You're sitting still, you're noticing your brain like bounce around like a freaking maniac, like to hear and planning and planning and planning and planning and planning. That's what my brain sounds like. Planning. And then you bring it back to the present moment, and you bring it back and you bring it back. And as you sit, stuff comes up, like thoughts come up, worries come up, sometimes emotions come up, like anxiety and all of these different things. So it's not like you sit there and you're like, oh, and it's like sparkly rainbow unicorns are like floating around your head. Like, that's not happening. You're sitting and all your shit is coming up. Like, all this stuff happens. Like, people say, I can't meditate because when I sit still, my brain goes crazy. No, that's just actually how your brain works. And that's actually how all human brains work. They are just thinking machines. The brain is wired to predict what's going to happen for you in the near future so that you can survive, right? Like that is what's happening. And so as you sit with this like chaos, like picture like, it's like kind of the way they do with kids, like the kids, they get the sparkly, you put sparkles in a mason jar and you shake it up and it's like, it's chaos, right? Like that's what happens. Um, as you sit with all that stuff, you normally when that happens, our brain tells us a story like, oh, I need to do X later, or oh, I need to do this, and I better go do the, and we start to like go and take action and do, or we have a feeling and then we start to explain away why that feeling is happening and what's wrong with us that this feeling is happening. But instead of doing all that other stuff that we normally do, what's different about a mindfulness meditation practice is that we start to notice, oh, I'm planning. Okay, I'm feeling now. I was planning. Now I'm feeling my breath come in. I'm feeling my breath come out. Oh, I notice some anxiety. Okay, hello, anxiety. I see you there. I'm not like trying to push it away. I'm not trying to make it go away. So all this, like the glitter is shaken all over the jar and you just stay still and you practice not reacting to it. You practice staying despite the fact that there can be this chaos that happens. And as you practice staying, you're literally practicing non-reactivity, right? You're practicing your brain telling you something really urgent because all of our thoughts are really urgent, right? And you're practicing not reacting to that. So then, like you're in the car, you're talking to your 13-year-old about, or your 15-year-old about condoms, and your body's like, ah, like your 15-year-old's like uncomfortable, and you're like freaking out, and you're like, and but this point now you've practiced, okay, here's this is this reaction in the body, I'm seeing it. So it's like, instead of being like under, like normally like we're in a waterfall and the waterfall is just like on us and there's water all over us, and a mindfulness meditation practice helps us to kind of step in front of the waterfall and be like, this is a waterfall, this is water. And so it's the same thing that happens when our emotions and thoughts start to say, act, act, act. We can say, okay, I cannot act right now. I can actually pause right now. It kind of builds that muscle of being able to pause. Does that make sense, Amy?
Oh yeah, I love that. I love the waterfall and the glitter because it's just a nice way of thinking about that. And yeah, thanks for talking about what's happening, because I can see that when you're able to have the practice of being calmer, you can call it up, right?
Yes,
like literally,
exactly.
you just said you called it up.
You're building a muscle,
Yeah.
like quite literally. So like in the brain, quite literally, like all the things you've practiced before, like the anxiety response that you've been practicing for 20 years, that is literally a very well myelinated groove in your brain, because the neural network, it has built a groove in your brain. So it's very easy for it to go down that path, just like it's easy for us to drive down a highway, right? And so like practicing something new can be, at first it can feel really hard, like you're like, instead of a highway, you're like bushwhacking through the forest, and then to make a path you have to kind of walk down that and walk it again and practice again and practice again, and then eventually it becomes very smooth and easy to travel. It's very much like a metaphor that I like is like, so we want to be able to calm our overall reactivity. We want to be able to be present for our kids and really listen to our kids, even when we're feeling that, even when we're feeling that stress response, where, we're in a difficult, challenging moment with our kids. And what I think is important to realize is that you're not going to be able to do it just by saying, I intend to be calm when I'm in this difficult situation with my kids.
Yes.
I'm just going to choose to be calm when I'm in this difficult situation with my kids, because that's the same as like sending your kid to like the Little League World Series and you've never sent them to a practice or gone to a coach or ever even swung a bat, right? Like you you need to practice, like get a little muscle memory there, and like get those grooves going in the brain. So the two big things I have to say about the overall stress response are that you got to reduce your overall stress in your life, sleep, exercise, friends, and family. And mindfulness meditation, if you can add this into, it is so powerful. It makes such a big difference. It is side effect free, my friends. It's easy and cheap. I mean, maybe it's not easy. It's simple, but not easy, but you can get started very, very easily. I've got resources on my website. There are all those wonderful apps and things. Literally, like you can practice for 3 to 5 minutes a day at first to kind of start to build a muscle, right? Like not like 20 minutes once a month. It's literally like you don't do triceps at the gym for like 20 minutes every 6 months and you expect results. No, you have to do a little bit every day and you will see a difference.
I have a question for you. I want to switch the view. Can everybody see both of us? I'm like so dumb at this these days. I don't know. Like we can see everyone. Anyway, can you see both of us? That's my big question. Somebody put it in the chat. I wish I could figure Zoom out. I feel like I need Zoom school, but it's also feels like it's too late. Anyway, so I made a note, and my note was like you say, reduce your overall stress in your life. So my two questions are: when you say friends and family, they can be no fun, right? So where's the like? I'd love it if you talk a little bit about that, and then do that, and then I'll ask my other question. So that was the like, okay, yes, we need more time with friends and family, but how do you deal with that?
Sure, yeah. So I'm not an expert in like reducing your overall life stress, except only in the case of mindfulness meditation, because there's so many different circumstances that we all come from. Like sometimes your friends and family are like a really supportive group, and sometimes they add a bunch of stress to your life. Mm-hmm. So you got to decide that for yourself. But the one thing we know, at least from the research, is that human beings are social creatures, and you should not be isolating yourself from your support networks and the people who support you and help hear your stories and help you walk through this life. We all need those people. So even if your life is busy, even if you've got a 4-year-old, even if you've got an infant and you feel like I can't do anything because this being takes up my whole life right now, you need those people in your life, right? So we need other people. That's why I include friends and family.
Yeah. Whatever that looks like even if it's just 2 people, having somebody. And also I'm assuming like legit, not Facebooking, right? Not Facebook.
Yeah.
That's just, we don't even need to go down that path, but so I think
IRL is best.
IRL. You're right. IRL is the best. And I think also just when you were saying that, I think that just like, again, having some mindfulness about, all right, I need this space. I need this time. Even if my guess is that even if it's just a 10-minute phone call or with a good friend, and you're going to have the call and you're thinking, I'm going to have the call, I'm going to be in this 10-minute moment. I imagine just that tiny bite would bring things down a little bit. So it was kind of piggybacking. My other question was, are there other things little things? I mean, the meditation obviously is the gold star, but when you said overall, like reduce your stress overall in your life, that made me panic a little bit because I'm like, how? Do you have any other ideas just like of how to make like little changes? Because I think that with small
changes, I do, and I think
more successful,
Yeah, and I think that some of the things I want to share with you to calm the in the moment stress can also be taken as little things that you can just bring in and practice in your life.
Oh, cool.
So let's go there.
Yeah.
All right. So then you're like in the moment, you're gonna give your talk to your child. You're freaking out. It's scary as all heck. And they're having resistance, all of those things. So there's three things that you can do. So I have 3 R's actually. So one is to recognize that like your stress response is triggered. Just simply recognize it. So, oh, I'm feeling anxious right now. I'm feeling a little nervous right now. You just might say that to yourself mentally, and just to recognize it, because simply recognizing it puts you right in front of that waterfall, okay, rather than in it. You're interrupting the neural network, you're interrupting the pattern. Just by recognizing it, you're going to provide yourself some relief. So this is one of the little things, and it's like a mindfulness thing that you can do in your overall life too, which is to recognize, I'm, when you're, recognize, I'm feeling my shoulders are feeling tense today. And rather than being like, all right, my shoulders feeling tense today, I'm going to carry on and soldier on through and whatever. You just take a minute and maybe breathe. You give yourself a little shoulder rub. You give yourself a 30-second break. There's no rush. There may be rushes for things in life, but the vast majority of things we think we're in a rush for, in a hurry for, can wait 30 seconds. I would venture to say 99% of the things we can stop for 30 seconds and breathe and give ourselves a shoulder rub. So part of that is changing the mindset into I matter, my stress response matters. My taking care of myself matters, right? So that's kind of shifting into that mindset. So number 1 is to recognize your triggers. Number 2 is to remove yourself. So I'm going into the situation, I'm going to talk, and you might start to notice, I'm walking up to my child's room, I'm on the way to the door, I'm knocking on the door, and then you might say, oh my God, my heart is pounding. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. You're going to take a moment to pause. You're going to say, hey, honey, I'll be right back. Actually, I just need a minute. You're going to duck into the bathroom and you're going to start to calm that stress response. Okay. So I'm going to give you a few of those tools to do that in just a second. So number 2, remove yourself, like give yourself permission to take a moment of pause. And then number 3 is resource, right? So recognize, remove yourself, and resource. Okay. So you can do these 3 things. So take a moment. For instance, this isn't an example from trying to give a stress sex talk about sex with my kids, but when my daughter, there was a daughter, I remember when my daughter was real young, like 2 years old, Sora, when she was having this tantrum, she was driving me bananas, it was going crazy, and I could feel myself being like, bah! And so I put her in her crib and I took myself, she was safe. She was freaking all the hell out. I left the room. I walked into my room. I walked out onto, I have a little balcony on my bedroom. I closed the balcony door and then I resourced. Okay. I removed myself and I resourced. And it was so much better for me to take myself away completely from that situation than to just freak out in that reactive state.
And are you saying resource?
So what are some of those things we can do?
Are you saying
yes?
Resource,
like get your resources, like use your resources. And these are what we're going to talk about right in this second. So what are those resources? We want to teach our nervous system that this is not an emergency, that we are safe. So there's a few ways we can do this. We can do this you can do it by kind of using the mind, and you can you can resource by starting with the body. So a couple of resources in the body that you can do. Okay. Deep breathing. It is cliche because it works. They're teaching it to like Navy SEALs to use like in those moments. So I invite you, like literally right now, put a hand on your belly, maybe one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart, and take a deep breath so your belly expands. Breathe in, breathe in, breathe in. And then a long, slow exhale. We're going to do 3. Another deep breath in. Feel the belly expand. Feel it. And then a long, slow exhale. Really slow, slow, slow exhale. And then again, breathe into the belly. Breathe in, breathe in. And this time you're going to make your exhale even longer than your inhale. So slow, slow, slow. Exhale. Keep exhaling till the belly comes in all the way out. And I want to just ask you, do you feel a change, right? You probably feel a change. I feel it. You can also take a sigh breath. So a long, deep breath or a sigh breath. So like, so there's some research that shows that if you take 5 or 6 like loud, dramatic sighs, it changes that brain chemistry. You're just changing that brain chemistry. It's very similar to the deep, slow breath. You go in, you resource, you go in the bathroom. Okay. Another physical one you can do. I have 2 more physical ones you can do that you can shake it out. So you're like, you're going in the room, you know, you're starting, your kid's starting to freak out, whatever, you're starting to freak out. Okay. I'm taking a break. You're going to just like shake it out. You're going to shake your hands, you're going to shake your shoulders. You're going to shake your whole body out, right? Literally, it looks crazy, crazy pants, but you're going to shake your whole body out. And so what this comes from, you should try, because you're like, if you're watching this, you're probably not on video, like making a fool of yourself like I am, but you can literally like, because what's happening is it is tightening your muscles. It is bringing blood flow to your limbs so that you can act, right? So that's literally energy is being built up in your body so you can act. And you have to disperse that energy. Right. So you have to disperse that energy. And that's what shaking does. There's actually, I have this great book in my bookshelf called Why Don't Zebras Get Ulcers? and it relates to this because, you know, like if you're a zebra, like there's a lion like on the savannah, it's chasing you. You'd think like this zebra's got this like crazy stressful life. You can watch videos. A lion chases a zebra, doesn't catch the zebra. And what that animal does is goes it shakes that whole thing out, shakes it off, just like a dog shaking it off. So they shake off that stress response. So you can do that as well. So the deep, slow breath tells your nervous system that you think out. So those are physical things you do, the sigh breath. And then we can also start with our minds too. And then pretty soon after this, I'm gonna give you some time for questions. So you can use a mantra. And I talk about some of these in the book. You can say, I'm safe. This is not an emergency. I'm helping my child. I'm safe. This is not an emergency. I'm helping my child. I'm helping my child. I'm safe. I'm helping my child. Right? Deep breaths. And, you know, it seems like we feel a little silly doing this. Like, feels like we shouldn't have to do this. Like, I shouldn't have to do this because I can just choose. You know, we all have this like ego that says, like, I'm different, I'm special. I can just choose to calm down my stress response. But the truth is that we all human beings are mammals with a stress response. And yes, these really, really help. So you can do a practice where you visualize yourself going into a situation with your child. And I invite you to, if you really want to take this, you know, write down those resources, visualize yourself going into a stressful situation with your child, like that sex talk, and then visualize yourself practicing these resources, because as you visualize it, your brain kind of doesn't really know the difference. And so you'll literally have practiced this new response where you say, honey, hey, I got to talk to you about some important stuff with your body, and they start to go, "Ah!" and you put a hand on your belly and you breathe. You don't react right away. You breathe. I'm helping my child. I am safe. I'm helping my child. This is not an emergency, right? You say all those things and you practice that. Okay, so I just gave you guys a ton of information, but I just want to kind of circle back. It is possible to reduce our anxiety about talking about, talking about sex, to yell less, to reduce that stress response. It just takes a willingness to be brave / uncomfortable, remember? And I want you to start reducing your overall stress and then making a plan, a resource plan. So when I'm starting to feel that stress response, I'm going to do these 2 or 3 things, right? And the benefit is that you'll strengthen your relationship with your child because they'll see that you are a grounded presence that they can come to. Okay. Um, all right, I'm gonna have time for Q&A, but first I want you to just read this quick poem for you to end with this. I think it's really pretty great. And it applies to so many things. And I think it also applies here. So this is called, you may have heard it before, An Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters by Portia Nelson. Okay, here we go. 1, I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes me forever to find a way out. 2, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes me a long time to get out. 3, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. 4, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. 5, I walk down another street. So I love this, right? This that process. So if you're still like falling in the sidewalk, if you're still falling in the hole, you just begin anew. Come back to these tools. They'll be here for you when you're ready.
I love that poem. It's really, really great. And I think that that this becoming able to check in with yourself. I love your 3 R's, especially around talking with kids about any kind of difficult subject. Definitely going to help with that. But what you were saying about, it's kind of like if you're calmer and more collected, you're more connected to your child, the more likely they're going to be to listen to you and confide in you when that time comes. And as you and I have discussed, Hunter, talking about sex is just so full of amygdala hijack, like so many things, right? I mean, there's just so much, our personal histories and just the way our culture is and all of that. And I think that that practice, just those little pieces you gave are really helpful, but I would like that to be in my bones because it's going to work for everyone. Like, I'm married to a human and sometimes I wish he was a cat, but hey, but I just see the trickle down effect of this. So can you talk a little bit about like the mirroring maybe with your kids? I know lots of folks have teenagers. So I'm just thinking, imagining them, they're in a terminal state of amygdala hijack. Any thoughts about helping them, with that? I know you don't necessarily work with kids, but our brains are our brains, right?
Yeah. So as we start to recognize this more in ourselves, we can start to recognize this in our kids. We can start, and also one of the things that mindfulness is amazing at helping us do is start to move away from that thinking, that kind of judgmental thinking, and into that curiosity thinking. Kind of, there are different sides of that spectrum. So if we go into that room to talk to our kids and we're seeing a certain posture, we're seeing they're having difficulty, we can go, rather than, like, a lot of times our instant reaction is judgment, and so we can start to bring ourselves towards this curiosity, which I think is this really first essential step. Like, if
Yeah.
we're not all like crazy and reactive, right? So then we can start to see that curiosity and say, I wonder what's happening for my child. I wonder if we're like seeing, and what really the practices of mindfulness are really inviting you to do is to be to be open and curious, and to acknowledge what is real right now, right? So about mirroring, I think what I think of is like just that step of acknowledging this might be hard for you right now to listen to, right? That acknowledgement piece is just gives your child a sense of like, I'm seeing you and I'm hearing you, like I'm attuned, right?
Mhm.
And that can provide a lot of relief, right? For them to say, okay, mom or dad knows that this is not easy.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
what you're coming?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just think like, how do we expand our almost like our personal work into our helping our kids? Like, obviously, if the more calm the effed we are, the better that's going to be for our relationship for our kids, and then being an example, right? And giving them the tools without teaching them, right? Especially adolescents, they don't like to be like, all right, I noticed that you're holding your breath. Why don't you step outside the waterfall? Like, they're not going to go for that. They're not going to do that, right? So just being careful about, like I love it, just like acknowledge what's happening in your head, then proceed. Somebody, Heather said, I feel calm until my daughter starts to freak out, and that happens easily over any mom talk, hygiene, safety online, etc. Makes her shut down, and she starts to twitch, and then wah. Any thoughts about that? And how old is she, Heather? That is also helpful, because that's a super common reaction. Yeah, definitely. Like, hey, 12.
12. Yeah, totally. So I guess, Heather, there's kind of like it sounds a little challenging, but there's another mantra that we use in mindful parenting that might be very helpful here. So, as mom, you need to talk about hygiene, safety online, all that stuff. Like, that's your job. You're here with Amy, which shows me that you are doing the right thing, and having these talks with your kids, which is amazing and is going to be so protective of them in so many ways. And so many of us, it's so difficult to have those talks. So good for you. So I want you to just acknowledge, like, I'm doing the right thing, so that you're doing what you need to do. Now, your daughter, she starts to get upset, she starts to twitch. And what I would say to you is that this is not actually your problem, her reaction. You're not it success does not mean she feels perfectly comfortable and and excited to talk to you about all those things. Like, that's not what success is. Success is you doing your job, and her reaction is her reaction. That's her thing. That's her stuff. You are not responsible for your child. Like, we know that as soon as our kids are like 18 months, like, they make their own choices, right? I didn't like choose to like grab the cat's tail. But we're not responsible for our children, but we are responsible to our children. So you doing your part and sitting down, doing the talk, taking care of your own feelings, all of those things, that's what you can do. And you can't control her reaction. That's her thing. That's her problem. So it sounds a little harsh. I wouldn't say it out loud, but you might internally say to yourself, sorry, not my problem. Not my problem. Not my problem. right, for her reaction, because it's her problem. It's not your problem.
And I think also a total, just to piggyback on that, the minute our kids like get crazy town, we just mirror and everybody's brain gets hijacked. So I think that saying, I'm helping my child, her reaction is not my problem, puts that, like, get you outside their waterfall. I love the waterfall. I'm just going to try and work that in to all of my conversations. When you're able to kind of acknowledge do your R's, and then look at their kiddo and say, oh, this is not my problem. Again, going to keep you calmer. And that tends to calm kids down. And then just a sex talk side note, with a kid like that, another way to help them is to warn them, is to warn her and say, hey, I need to talk to you about periods. 3 minutes. Here we go. They do better with that, which is another, it sounds like another mindfulness practice, right? Of thinking to yourself, how am I going to do this? Oh, we're going to take a full on acknowledge, right? Acknowledge what's happening here. And then what's my resource? What are my resources? How am I going to be chill through this? And that's a resource, is for kids. Talking about tough stuff with kids is just to say, this is hard, or here it comes. I don't know if that is, I'm making it up, that's a mindful thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, to acknowledge that this is hard and say it may be uncomfortable. Sorry, we got to do it anyway. Here we go. 3 minutes.
Yeah. And you're prepared too, right? Like that's like gathering yourself up. And the more mindfulness practice you have, the quicker that prep's going to happen. You know, I know from in my own experience, it's like talking about, like, for me, doing that little, okay, calm down, like whatever I did before I talked with Milo about stuff, especially hard stuff, I got better and better and better at it. So I'm just imagining if I had this mindfulness practice and these tools just in parenting in general, obviously, but in this particular, any difficult conversation, that have it in your bones will just make all of that communicating and connecting happen more quickly. I mean, I just out of curiosity, I know everybody's different. Do you have any sense of, like, when somebody commits to your 8-week, you have an 8-week program or something like that? Or
Well, yeah. It's actually, the mindful parenting, we only do a lifetime membership because it's kind of like learning a new language. We have
sure.
to like kind of come back and practice in multiple ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's 8 weeks.
So I guess my question is,
In general,
is
to
there
get
a
started.
general point where people are in practicing where they have where they're walking around the hole and going on the new walk to be part of that darling, wonderful poem? Is there a point? I mean, I know everyone's different, but maybe my question also is, like, is there a feeling of a switch flip almost?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is that everybody's different. Sometimes people can, like, within the first week, start to feel a difference because of the, maybe not so much because of the practice, I think, at that point, but because of actually just, not because maybe all those changes in the brain are happening yet, but because they're taking a little time every day and creating that powerful intention and creating that, even if it's a small 5-minute practice of calm, they're taking they're creating that intention and so it's like this whole new mindset when you start your day, to, rather than be like, to start your day and say, okay, here I am, I'm going to do this thing for myself. And then you have this sense of, like, I'm more of a grounded mountain, being able to, so that can happen. But yeah, it kind of depends on the learning ladder, and it depends which skill because we teach all these communication skills. So sometimes you get into the, like, okay, I've stopped, like, yelling at my kids, and then I'm like falling into this communication hole in the sidewalk, and then it takes me a little while to, like, figure out not how to not go down that communication hole in the sidewalk, and then so there's the next thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that, Heather, your 12-year-old example, like, adolescents, when those kiddos' brains start to change and their prefrontal cortexes go offline for way too long, and so they can't, the fight, flight, or freeze takes over. I'm just imagining that, especially for folks who are parenting teenagers, when they're where they're really in this amygdala hijack space of life, which is absolutely developmentally typical and also 100% super crazy making. I just can see how this would be a really good tool always in parenting, but in particular, finding that that place of overall de-stressing, because teenager time is tough. I had a woman I worked for once that worked full-time, and she worked full-time, and her plan was to work full-time until her kids were in middle school, and then she was going to quit and be a full-time mom, because she knew for her that it was going to be better for her to be home with her teenagers and be right there for them than the other way around, which she was super smart. And I thought that was a really cool way of looking at that. Anyway, I just sidetracked, but I know the
No, they need us. Like our teenagers, they need us. I think I just want to piggyback on that because they need us they're in that fight, flight, or freeze thing. And what they need is, you're right. Like they don't need us to tell them what to do, but if they see you, I'm going to take this little time for myself every day. I'm going to practice these tools every day. They start to see that modeling of that is so much more effective than any kind of like book you could give them or whatever. And then when you, not only the modeling of that, but the just being present for all the challenges, being able to really be there and really see them and really be there for them in a way where even your brain is there with your body.
Yeah. Everybody
the whole package is there together.
Everybody's showing up. Cool. Yeah, this has just been so helpful. And, I think also, again, I just want to kind of go back to I asked you to do this because of the anxiety around talking to kiddos about sexuality. And this is what I was hoping for, because at the end of the day, like the connection and communication it's key anyway. But when it comes to sexuality, and, because I'm all about this, but I think it is even more key, especially in adolescence and as kids start to date and are really having like full-on sexual experiences and feelings and all of that. And if we're able to remain calm in that, consciously calm, thank you. Consciously calm in those moments, it's going to just serve them and you'll feel better. I mean, I think that is one of your whole messages about just what the work that you do is you'll feel better. And, and it doesn't seem like it doesn't all have to be a glitter jar. And it seems easier now just hearing you talk about this. So I just really super appreciate it. Oh, good. You put the poem link in there. So Winnie, we're at 5 after. Anything else you'd like to tell us? I know people want to know how they can learn from you. Why don't you tell us a little bit how they can learn from you? And then will you just give us some words of wisdom to wrap her on up? How's that?
Sure. You can get a copy of Raising Good Humans if you like. You can get a copy anywhere, and it's on audiobook too. And if you want to know more about, want some more resources to kind of stop yelling and look at the Mindful Parenting Roadmap, I have some free resources for you that Amy has a link that she can share. She'll be sharing with you, so you can follow that link, sign up for the mailing list. You can then we'll send you some podcasts and other great stuff where you can learn about how to dive deeper. The people I help the most are the Mindful Parenting members. It's like this strong community where you're not alone, you're doing it together, you're getting live guidance, all of that stuff. Sometimes we try to do something all by ourselves, and it's just not quite the same. So you can get. Thank you guys so much. And so I guess my final words of wisdom are this. What you practice grows stronger. You can start to shift and change the way you respond to your kids and strengthen your relationship with them. You can start to help yourself be that grounded, calm presence and communicate in such a way so that they're actually listening to you and actually wanting to, they can really strengthen that relationship. And it does, you don't have to be perfect. to do it. And, you know, we're going to mess up. You're going to go from this. You're going to be like, I have all these great tools. It's great. And then you're going to try, you might make a mistake and mess it all up. We can always begin anew. We can always begin again. It's okay for you to go back, reconnect, and to begin anew at any time with all these tools, with your relationship with your kids. You can always begin anew. Always, always, always. I had a grandmother who took mindful parenting and for her taking care of her 6-year-old grandson, and like she said, I healed my relationship with my adult daughter. So you can always begin anew, right? Like the tools are there. So don't give up. Keep going. You can do it.
Yay, thank you. And I'll send the recording and all the how to get a hold of Hunter stuff. Thank you so much. This was super duper helpful. We're getting nice comments, loving it. Love the presentation. Thanks for the information. Love the tools. They've been so helpful. Thanks so much. Have to go. Cool. I love that about the grandmother. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording, and if just we can hang out for a few more minutes. All right. Thanks, everybody.